you want to keep your mute on, I can hear feedback when you're not talking anyway. Okay, we're live.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the May 16th special board meeting to order at 7 p.m. Can I get roll call, Karen?
Handy,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Nave,
Here.
Slings,
Here.
Krell,
Here.
Powell, Powell,
He's on there. I think he's trying to speak.
Here.
There we go.
thank you.
Here. Here.
I think he's got a delay. I think that's where we're getting our feedback from as well.
I heard you, Rick.
Here.
All right,
Can you
looks
hear me
like
now?
I can hear you, Rick. Jason, can you hear him or?
Can you hear
Yeah,
me now?
everybody can hear him.
Okay. All right. Looks like we have a quorum. We'll go ahead and
Thank you.
move on. So agenda adoption. Are there any changes to this agenda?
No.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. And I have a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Krell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right. 1C, district vision and mission. Mr. Krab, you want to read that?
Yep, I got it. Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live, success for career, college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
All right. Thank you very much. Now 1D, this is the time for public comments. If there's anybody that's on here that would like to address the board for anything on the agenda or off the agenda, now's the time to do so. You'll be given about 3 minutes individually and 5 minutes as a group is the normal. So we don't have anything that's been phoned in or emailed in, but we'll give it a few seconds to see if anybody types. Mr. Kurth, if anybody starts typing, let me know. And
All of you will also see the comments as they come in, period.
okay. Seeing that nobody is typing, we'll go ahead and
Looks like you're muted, Mr. Handy.
All right, we'll try this again. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and go on to item number 2, old new business, return to learn. Dr. Lipnick.
But with the new news from Friday on the Iowa Department of Public Health adjusting their guidelines and recommendations, obviously there are potential changes to our return to learn plan, and that's the reason for the meeting tonight. I shared with you, and it's also in the agenda here, what I see as the 3 possible options. Ironically, there are 3 different groups that we've been taking guidance from throughout this whole process: Polk County Health, Iowa Department of Public Health, and the CDC. And each one of those 3 things kind of represents the guidance coming from them. It's all a little bit different. So as you look at those choices, there's a choice to maintain the status quo, no change to current mitigation strategies or mask policy. Second choice would be to follow the CDC guidance, which distinguishes between vaccinated and unvaccinated regarding mask use. And then the following would be the number 3 would be to follow the Iowa Department of Public Health guidance, which suggests that mask choice for students should be left up to the family's choice. So those are the 3 things as I see them. I want to give you a chance to have a discussion here and then make an informed decision.
What was the background research and methodology done by IDPH to make such a departure from the status quo?
I can't answer that.
They didn't release any of that?
You have the letter. It's the same letter. That's what we got.
So walk me through what's Polk County's statement, because I know it's different and it's basically just maintain the course. Did they do anything else?
No, not at this point. But historically, they have eventually come in line with the Iowa Department of Public Health. Sometimes it's taken some time, but as of right now, they haven't released any other statement other than the statement that their recommendation was to be to finish the year with the things that we have in place.
And my understanding is that regardless of what IDPH says, our quarantine, the requirements that we're held to are that of Polk County, not of Iowa Department of Public Health, correct?
Correct.
So if they haven't changed and we have some type of event, it could be grand sweeping over the last 2 weeks because we're still governed by their rules.
Yeah, our nurses are waiting right now for further guidance there and assuming that there'll be something shortly here to align things.
Okay.
So just to clarify, the CDC came out with new guidelines this last week in regards to vaccinated individuals that are fully vaccinated. And that guidance was that they could go without masks in most situations around vaccinated or unvaccinated people. And they had a very, very low risk of transmission or getting sick or anything like that, or seriously ill. So that was the CDC. And then shortly after, we get the Iowa Department of Public Health guidance, which alludes to the CDC's message, but then provides different guidance, which is make masks optional for everybody, allow parents to choose. And so to me, it feels a little bit rushed and a little bit counter to what the guidance from the CDC was, both of which just kind of got dropped on everybody out of the blue, which doesn't make our lives any easier in trying to sort through all of that. I guess from my perspective, I'll just state my perspective here and be the first one to get the straw man out here. But we have 11 and a half days of school left, correct?
Right.
And so we've been basically going through the same safety layered mitigation strategies for 8.5 months. We made some variations in terms of hybrid versus fully in person versus online when the conditions changed. But other than that, we've always had masks. We've been wiping down desks. We've used hand sanitizer, encouraged hand washing, all of these different mitigation strategies. We've tried to distance as much as we can. Obviously, that changed a little bit when we went in person. So we've been doing this for 8.5 months, and in 11.5 school days, this school year is over. So the finish line is like in sight. It's on the horizon. And we have CDC saying, don't change anything yet this year. In fact, they came out with that message yesterday. They said, schools, keep your mitigation strategies in place as they are right now. And then we'll reevaluate. We'll come out with some more guidance. We'll reevaluate for the next school year. So from my standpoint, I'm thinking, we've been doing this for so long. It doesn't seem like it's caused a huge problem for anyone. What is the harm in continuing that for the next 11.5 days? And I look through the options that you proposed here. I think from an outdoor standpoint, that there's not a lot of evidence I've seen out there that wearing masks outdoors, unless you're in a very crowded environment, really provides a whole lot of benefit. So I can see that being something that we might want to ease up on. And in reality, I've driven by and I've seen, sports practices and track meets and stuff like that. And I would say that adherence to wearing a mask outdoors is pretty minimal at this point, especially after the CDC released their guidance. So to me, it seems like the outdoor piece is an area where it would be pretty easy for us to say, hey, let's do as much PE outside as we can. When the kids go out to do sports, unless they're in a really crowded situation, allow them to have that freedom. If the weather's good, you want to do class outside, great. And for the indoors, if you're vaccinated, all the guidance right now is in alignment with saying if you're vaccinated, you're good to go. So I think that second option, where outdoors we ease up and indoors if you're vaccinated, makes a lot of sense to me. So and that's kind of looking through what all the guidance that we've been given here, and also hearing from the community. I mean, we've heard from people that are concerned about their kids going back to school tomorrow and nobody's wearing masks except for their kids, and they're going to get bullied, or they don't feel safe. And so it just, to me, we're so close to the end. Why not just stick it out for 11.5 more days, and then we can reevaluate for summer school, for graduation. That's outdoors, great. Masks optional. I'm all for that, assuming that we can do that at the Drake Stadium. But yeah, we're just so close to the finish line. I mean, I hear the arguments about, let parents choose, let parents be the parents. That's all great, but we are talking about a public health situation where your choice to wear a mask can affect other people. So I think, stay the course, and I'll give the floor back to whoever wants to give their perspective.
So I guess one of the things that I am kind of having a small issue with is when the CDC says anybody that's vaccinated can not wear a mask. So I would, and I don't know if you can tell me the numbers off how many, Dr. Lutnick, how many of our staff have been vaccinated. Would it be fair to say that we've probably reached herd immunity with our staff? Is our percentages pretty high for those that have had it, or do we even know who, other than the clinics that we've had, outside sources of the staff getting shots, do we even know what that percentage would be?
I mean, it would be anecdotal at best and rough. We don't have records of that. That's not something that we would keep track of. That's the separate personal health issue for each individual.
So yeah, it falls under the HIPAA. So I figured we probably wouldn't really have the answers to that. But with the I guess with that, so when the CDC comes out and says those that are vaccinated obviously don't have to wear it if they don't want to. I mean, how does that really play a part? You know, on when they're telling them you can have a choice, but then we're saying, well, no, you're not really going to have a choice. In restaurants, you know, places, I mean, you're going out there and you're not seeing masks being worn. Again, you know, kids aren't, they're not wearing masks when they're around their friends outside of school. And I still think the percentages, and Tom's probably going to give me the accurate numbers here in a minute, probably. He's done a lot more research on it, but I think the number between 30 and maybe 50 is the high risk category still. Does anybody know that for sure? I
Are you
think
talking
that's-
ages, Brett, or are you talking?
Yeah, ages. Probably I think it was, if I remember right, 31 to 50 some was the ones that were at risk. And I'm thinking and students can be carriers, obviously, but
The high risk categories would still be only like your 65 and over. That's what they consider like your high risk, and then your multiple comorbidities as far as that goes. So, I mean, you still have the same population we started with now, which is still what they identify as like the high risk. So I like the IDPH's recommendation. It was crazy timing for the CDC and the IDPH. So they've slow played so far. As far as that goes, it was a little bit shocking, truthfully, that they actually came out. I mean, that should have been like from the moment somebody first got vaccinated, it should have been the guidelines. You're going to get vaccinated. Here's what you get to do. I mean, that's common sense. That's what we've done with every other vaccine, every other virus, as far as that goes. So that part of it was definitely a slow play. So that was shocking that they finally released it, but not shocking that they did it. The kid part that followed, we have a full year's worth of data that they've crunched. So kids have been in that super low risk category the whole time. So you can actually almost look at a kid as like a vaccinated adult as far as statistically speaking, which I think is why the IDPH pushed that out a little bit faster than what we were thinking. So they've been in that super low risk. The CDC has came out. We have a link to that article saying that flu is of greater risk of severe disease than what COVID is in children. So, and that's in adolescents. So that's a huge statement. And that's part of why IDPH would have moved that to classify that as a general childhood illness. So, and that's where the mask reduction as far as kids and stuff has come from. So that part was not surprising either. I mean, that's been long overdue as well, which is why like the big push to get back into school early was. We knew that data like 6 months in, and then that data has not changed. It's only gotten stronger as far as the percentage of kids that are actually affected by severe disease. That number has went down as far as percentage wise over that time. So not surprising at all as far as how they're moving with that progression now. And I think you'll see this kind of speed up as far as all recommendations as far as this goes. So, and that's all, I mean, on the medical side of things, we've been looking for this for quite a while. And it's been kind of frustrating for a lot of our doctors, our pharmacists, our nurses, all the ones that are in my organization that we work with. It's been super frustrating as far as like the mask mandates and all that not being dropped off sooner for our vaccinated people, and then two, for our kids and for schools. So, and not surprising. I mean, surprising timing wise, like at the very end of the school year. But I think the biggest benefit we can look at for this would probably be mental health. So that's been the one thing that I'd say that we have not done a lot for our kids, as far as been able to, as far as school. I mean, you can't do it obviously when you're not in school. And then it's a difficult topic. So yeah, it's only 11 days, but it's also 11 days of making those connections. We have teachers that haven't seen a child's face the whole entire year. So a kid that they've never had in their class, some have never seen. I mean, that's kind of, they said it's been very hard on the teachers. Kids, very, very hard. I mean, if we have 11 days of basically being able to see a smile, a facial expression, and make some of those connections, that'll kind of hopefully keep some of those kids connected throughout the summer, and then make those, I don't know if you want to say last minute relationships with their teachers. So As far as maybe like the overall, yeah, we could stick masks on and we could stick it out for another 11 days. It's not going to kill anybody. But I think the mental health benefit would be magnified by the kids being able to do that the last few days. So that's kind of looking at it. I'm like, we could go both ways. The biggest benefit is the whole mental. And that's the part that's been, I think, the roughest as far as the mental health. That's the part that we've had, I guess, the least amount of involvement in. I can't think of anything we've done like out of the ordinary as far as reaching out and stuff. So, I mean, my whole thing would be to go ahead and drop those masks. And the masks, that has went back and forth too. So in the last guidance we have is, yes, it helps protect your neighbor, but it also protects yourself. So the fact that we have a mask optional, I mean, just like now, if you want to wear a mask, you wear a mask. I still respect it in every store I go in, when they ask. It's just, but now it's more protecting yourself. I mean, our adults, that's, I believe, why we had the mask mandate to begin with, is to help protect our teachers and our older, higher risk population that we had in the buildings. And they've all had a chance to be vaccinated if they want to be vaccinated. And then that's be another reason too, is it's one more factor that the kids don't have to worry about. We're not leveraging our kids to help protect our adults. So, and I don't know how many times in history we've done that, where we've used our kids and done something that may help harm them a little to help protect adults. So, and it's not arguable that it's caused mental harm or mental health harm on our kids as far as the masking and the restrictions. So I guess there's a lot of it that comes into play here. But I think even though it's 11 days, we can do a lot for relationships in that time.
So I guess I would ask that if at all possible, we stipulate that this actually is, even though it's in the course of one conversation, it's actually two separate conversations. And what I mean by that is, are we going to do anything first and foremost to change what the mandate is when it comes to our students? And then secondly, are we going to adhere to the new CDC guidance when it comes to our teachers? Or are we doing one umbrella where everyone's under the same thing? And I think those are separate conversations that need to be taken into consideration. Because if we separate those out, we can have the conversation of our teachers. If they've chosen to be vaccinated, they can remove their mask. We'd ask that they adhere to the CDC guidance, and that's how we'll have to run with that. We have good people at Southeast Polk. We'll hold them to their honor and doing the right thing. But I think that we need to have separate conversations there about what we're doing for our staff versus what we're doing for our students. And I understand what you're saying, Tom. I don't disagree. A lot of what we did to initially start was to protect our teachers. But a lot of what that data says is, even though the effects on the students aren't as bad, they're still quite capable of transmitting it. So it was the community aspect as well. We didn't want people taking it home to families that haven't had the chance to vaccinate, which there are still some. Shouldn't be as many, hopefully, because there have been lots of appointments, but there still are some. And also, those that can't get the vaccine for whatever reason. It's new data for the effectiveness and the safeness of the vaccine for pregnancy. And I can think of at least 3 families off the top of my head that can't get it because they were specifically told that it would put them in danger because of the different effects or different conditions underlying they had. So are you guys okay with stipulating that that's 2 different conversations, or is this something that you feel that we have to have all in one? Mr. Handy, I guess, yeah, that would be your call.
Well, I think it's the board's call, but I guess I don't want to do for one and not do for the other if we're going to make students wear a mask, but then the teachers that are vaccinated, they get a choice. And I think it's about choice for families and our employees. So I think where that leads, where I'm going. So I'm just going to pass it on to the rest of the board to speak. But I say it's kind of a one deal.
I like that, Adam. I mean, as far as I think when you talk about
I
the adults that is
agree
following
with
CDC guidance.
I think we had 2 people talking there. Rick, were
Do you
you talking?
guys hear me?
Yeah, I think you and Tom just crossed paths. Go ahead and,
Yeah, I was trying to talk. Can you hear me?
you're cutting in and out, but
Thanks. With 11 and a half days to go, think it would be very unfair to. I think with 11 and a half days to go, can you hear me now? I might switch computers. Go ahead with somebody else.
I wonder, Rick, would it would it be possible for you to dial in on the phone? I don't really want to miss anything that you're saying.
I think he's hopping over to a different computer is what he was trying to do.
Tom, I think you were starting to say something when you and Rick were crossing paths. If you,
Oh, I was starting to agree with Adam. I didn't want Adam to fall off his chair, but yes. So no, I mean, we had talked about that a little bit earlier, but just as far as I think with our adults, we'd still kind of say follow the CDC guidance because that did not change as far as that goes. So I mean, if we would ask them to follow the current CDC guidance as far as adults and immunizations and masks, that'd be the courteous thing to do. So.
While Rick's getting set up here, and we're going to make our own decision, you know that, Dirk, and the 7 of us know that because we're all strong-willed people. But what my understanding is that for the districts of our size, no one's making a change as of yet. Is that correct?
No one that I'm aware of right now.
And it sounds like there's been at least, I know Waukee has said that they're sticking it out for the last 11 and a half days after they announced otherwise on Friday. Did West Des Moines do that as well, or who?
Waukee, West Des Moines, and Linn-Mar are the only ones that I'm aware of that have made a decision.
Okay. And they've all said they're just going to stick it out for the last 10 or 11 days. Okay.
anybody else have anything? Or we're waiting on Rick?
If anybody can pull up a negative as
I'll
far as
jump
dropping
in.
the
I'll say we had in-person scholarship night. We're having in-person awards, honors of assemblies. Invited guests for each graduate. I think we should stay the course and finish the year strong, and get through this year and then change or adapt for the summer.
So Tom, this is the one negative, and it's because Polk County hasn't figured itself out yet. This is the horror scenario, is that we drop this starting tomorrow morning, and then one kid sits down in that lunchroom at the high school, and all of a sudden we're having to quarantine 300 kids for the last 2 weeks of school because we're held to Polk County standards, not the Iowa Department standards, and they haven't aligned those yet. So that's my hesitation, is that we end up having to send kids home for a huge chunk of kids home for the last 10 days of school, where they're going to be isolated because Polk County hasn't gotten their ducks in a row to match with Iowa Department of Public Health or so on and so forth. That's the main negative I see, is that we're still held to their standards as opposed to the Iowa Department. Because on Friday, and I told Dirk this, and I told you this, Tom, too. On Friday, I was gung ho ready to do this, and then got the news that Polk County wasn't in line, and got the news that CDC wasn't quite in line, and here we are. So.
Yeah, I guess that's the hard part with Polk County not releasing a statement after that, right? So it's like the silence part. So I'm wondering, I don't know legally or how that would go as far as I guess whose rules go what without anybody saying anything. So.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, much better.
All right, thank you. My feelings are, with just 11 and a half days of school left, it'd be very unfair to our teachers to ask them to change once again. So I'm in favor of option 1. I would like to add the fact that I think once kids go outside, the masks come off. I like number 1, but I think recesses at the elementary school, the kids need to take them off. Sporting events and anything outside of the middle and high schools, junior high, masks need to come off. But I think in school it'd be unfair to our teachers that we've changed our return to learn plan so many times. Why are we doing it with 11.5 days? This would cause some people to go remotely, and there'd be a really burden on the teachers to have to make accommodations for everybody. And I just think, you know, we're so close to the finish line. Why don't we take the next couple steps and just finish it personally? But I do think that it's way past time that once kids go outside, the masks come off. So I don't know if we can amend number 1 to keep our mask policy in place, except for when the kids go outside. I don't know if that's an option, but I just think the teachers, here it is, 7:45 on a Sunday night, and they'd have to make some changes by tomorrow morning. That's just not fair. Seniors have 3 days of school left in finals, and the rest of the kids have 11.5 days. As an educator, I just think we've asked our teachers to do so many things this school year and to make so many changes. To ask them at this point would be unfair. That's just my opinion.
Just to throw something quick in, Ankeny just released a statement. They're also keeping masks for the end of the year. So that's a clean sweep for all school districts of our size in Polk County that are all going to, except for us, because we get to make our decision. But everyone's keeping their mask mandates. So.
And Rick, what would you say if I thought it would be a reward for the teachers? It's one less thing that they have to fight as far as trying to keep masks on or make kids wear their mask properly. And then 2, it's that actual chance to bond with their students, to actually get to see the smile, to get to talk. We had those kindergarten teachers and first grade teachers saying they want to see their mouth movements. They want to see their word formations. I mean, just kind of that, because I thought it would be easier and it'd be more of a reward. I mean, your teachers are protected if they want to be protected. So, I mean, that part doesn't affect them at all. The part that I think would be easier for them would be not having masks and not having to do the babysitting all day as far as pull your mask up, do this, do that. You know what I mean? That's where I was kind of thinking as far as that goes. I don't know, but obviously.
I think as a teacher that 4 inches of mask doesn't change my opinion of a kid's personality. I just think we need to be safe as a school district and keep everyone safe, no matter what they feel. It's just our best interest is safety. And yeah, you're right. It'd be nice to see the mouth and the teeth and the smile, but that's coming days ahead. If they want to see what their kids look like, go out at recess if you're in the elementary and have a good time with them. If you're in the 6th grade to 12th grade, just attend some events and see the kids graduate without a mask and see some kids, if they're that old, you've probably seen them, but the only ones I could say that maybe hasn't seen their kids, you're right, Tom, is the kindergarten teachers. And I think they can get through 11.5 more days.
And if I might add in there, I would agree the maintenance of wearing masks isn't going to impact teachers' job a whole lot. Could make it easier, could make it not easier. I think there's very little impact there. Where we might see an impact on teachers and the role that they're playing in the last 11.5 days of school is for students who might need to switch pathways as a result of the policy change. And we're at the time of year where we're collecting evidence and getting ready to fill out final report cards. And so if that suddenly switches to another teacher, that's going to create some extra steps along the way for collaboration and finishing that report. The teachers have done whatever has been needed this entire year. And no matter what is decided tonight, they'll continue to do that. But I just wanted to lay that out there as a variable because of the time of year we're in. If a student were to switch a teacher, that would cause some additional workload on both the sending teacher and the receiving teacher.
I agree.
So let me just kind of throw this out there. And I know, Lori, we haven't heard from you yet, and Gary, we haven't heard from you yet. So I don't want to take up too much time. Is there anyone who has an aversion to dropping the mandate when it comes to being outdoors? Or any one of us have an issue with that?
Nope.
No? Okay, then I think that's the first line of whatever resolution we come up with, or one of the lines in there needs to be that we will allow for it to be dropped when kids are outdoors. And staff when outdoors. So,
Item, I think they still need to wear them when they're on the bus.
well, yes, but that's, I guess you're right. That is technically outdoors as opposed to outside of the building, but I took that as being in an enclosed space. So if you're in an enclosed space,
Right.
masks need to be worn. Yeah, I can
just
get behind that.
I just want to make sure we are clear.
Joellen, is there anything, or Dirk, that within our 7,000 students that's created by outdoors without masks that we'd have to change educationally wise? That you can think of?
Not off the top of my head.
Same here.
So I'd like to make a motion that we maintain the current mask mandate that we have over all of the district, other than we allow students and staff, when they're social distanced, to remove their mask outdoors only.
I'll second that.
Gary, would you like to say anything?
Just to clarify, Lori, you said socially distanced outside. So if they're within 6 feet, are you saying they still have to wear a mask? Because that's how I read that out of your motion.
Well, I mean, we still have kids that haven't been vaccinated from at least 12 or 15 years of age down to 3, correct? 3 or 4. So
Technically, none of them have been vaccinated because it hasn't been the 2 doses and then 2 weeks.
correct.
So
So I'm trying to say, if they're all in a cluster outside, then they should have a mask on. But if they're socially distanced, I'm okay with removing the mask outdoors.
Any other discussion on this?
Yeah, I wanted to say just a few things. In the previous meetings, I think it's been quite clear. I don't hold the CDC in very high regard. But I do think it's a source of information that we have to take with these other governmental agencies and value that, weigh it out accordingly. It's our decision. It's our school district. The members of the community elected us to make the decisions, not this kaleidoscope of agencies with varying levels of competence and incompetence, in my view, on this. But and I know there's difference of opinions on that. I came in here pretty, with a mindset where I thought I was on this. I thought something I didn't think of or weigh out was Joellen's comment. I do think that's a concern, causing somebody to make a change 2 weeks in. I hadn't weighed that out. I would think it would be an unnecessary change, but a parent's going to make their decision for their child, and I understand that. I think this pandemic, by and large, is behind us. I think the vaccines have done what they were supposed to do and break the back of this god-awful, event. Something I hadn't checked was maybe it's still not out there, but the data by zip code, but all the measures have been dropping. I was fine with the idea of and have been, that it's a person's choice on the mask, including, the parent making it for the student. And I understand there's a difference between what the CDC said as far as adults, which have been vaccinated, and children that have not been. But, you know, I looked at the data just before we got on. I looked at it this morning and again before we got on our call. And by and large, this virus has affected the old and those with pre-existing conditions. The death rates, which of course is the worst case scenario, you know, according to what I just pulled off the state site, there's been 6,006 deaths, ages 0 to 17. And again, I think the worst of this is behind us. So the havoc has been, you know, the most of it hopefully is in that number. Ages 0 to 17, 0% deaths. 18 to 29, 0% deaths. 30 to 39, 1%. 40 to 49, 1%. You know, so you keep moving vast populations sort of out of the risk zone here just by the nature of the virus. 50 to 59 is only 5%. And somebody said 65, and again, it doesn't even get into meaningful numbers really till you get 60 to 69, and that's 13%. Even 70 to 79 is 22%. 80 and over is almost 60% of the deaths of this thing. And so, you know, I'm not, maybe we do have an octogenarian out there in the buildings, and I know, yes, can be transmitted and all this other thing stuff, but I think that adults have either got vaccinated or had it or made the decision not. And I would be supportive of allowing masks optional. Adults can make their decisions. Parents can make their decisions for their students. I am somewhat hesitant in what Joellen said, in that if some parent is going to change their mind because of a change in our mask policy, and that upends the last 2 weeks of some students learning, I think that's unfortunate.
I would say that I will vote in favor of what Lori's motion is standard. However, if we had the clarity from Polk County that they weren't holding us to what their current standard is, like I talked about earlier, my biggest fear is seeing 300 students all of a sudden have to miss the last 10 days of school because of Polk County's rules. If that were to shift in the next week, say before our next board meeting, I'd be willing to reconsider. But as long as those rigid rules are in place, I don't want to see that happen, because we've been so successful with not having quarantines and not having kids out with the current process. That's it.
I think, Dr. Let me correct me if I'm wrong. I think the sheet you put out said there's 20 in quarantine.
22, yes.
22. And do we have and I forgot, like I tried to pull it up here again, but how many of them actually tested positive?
8.
So eight out of the whole district.
Students, yes.
And then what were the teachers? Were there staff members or?
They were both in the 0 to 5 category.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to point something out. I know if you go to the coronavirus site and you look at those percentages that Gary was reading off, it does say 0%, but that's just because it's a rounding thing. If you actually hover over, you'll see that there are 0 to 17 deaths, there are 18 to 29 deaths, there are 30 to 39. They're very low percentages, but they do exist. So just to clarify, it's not that 0 kids have died of COVID in Iowa.
Right, it'd be 0%. So that's one thing. I mean, I agree with Gary on one thing you cannot say right now, and as being the only medical professional on this call, you cannot say safety. You cannot say we're doing this for safety. So because of the death totals, because of the sick rates, because it's now classified as a normal childhood illness by our health department, you cannot say safety. So you're not protecting children by keeping masks on right now. You may protect a high-risk child with multiple comorbidities, which would be our only deaths that we've had. So there's been not one healthy child that had no pre-existing conditions that has died. So these are all multiple high complex kids that have done, just like with the older population. So there is no safety component. We can't say we're doing this for the safety of our kids. And that goes to, like Joellen saying, as far as teacher, there's not a legitimate medical reason that a kid would have to pull out of class, being able to wear a mask and still go to school just because there's another child in their class without a mask on. So that's not a medical reason. That's not a safety reason as far as any kind of medical protocols or anything else that we have. So that's kind of gone by the wayside. And we've said that multiple times this year, and we've been wrong every single time as far as saying we're doing this to keep our kids safe. We were never doing it to keep our kids safe as far as percentages and numbers. We were doing it to keep our teachers safe, or because we were worried about community spread. Well, our community spread is below 3% as far as a state now on the 7 average, right? And a 3% for the 14. So, I mean, there's little to no viral load out there, or viral spread as far as that goes. So our risk is super minimal. And then you're taking the lowest risk group of individuals that they've now classified it just as a normal childhood illness. That's the biggest kicker for me, is when they've now moved that in and said, hey, this is just a normal childhood illness. This is how we're treating this. We're not treating it separately. We're not saying, hey, this is some high risk. And like I told you earlier, CDC states the flu has a higher risk of severe complications than COVID in these kids. So we don't do this. We don't put masks on and say it's flu season. We're going to save you kids. We're going to put masks on you. That's not the point. So if you can tell me what the point of masks are right now, other than possibly quarantine, that would be the only reason. And that should go by the wayside with this decision. So I would challenge that starting Monday, that Polk County would keep that quarantine in effect, because there is no reason as far as with the IDPH setting out those standards.
Well, but it's only the IDPH sending out those standards. I mean, CDC hasn't qualified it as just a childhood illness. Only Iowa Department has. They're kind of on an island there. I mean, of the three sources that we go by, they're the only ones saying that. So while I agree that that is certainly a step forward, hopefully in the future, until that's the consensus, I don't know, or at least more of a consensus among other departments of health, I don't know that that's where we want to be staking our claim. And I agree with what you're saying. Like the CDC has specifically pointed out that it is not as high risk as the flu for kids, but that's kind of what we were talking about earlier when we were saying it's not necessarily about what happens to the kids because they have a low risk of high side effects or of worse side effects. It's about the fact that they can transmit to their families and they can transmit to others in the community. And that's where that mask for the students comes into play, is because one of the densest populations we have at this point in time is still schools.
No, and I would counter that, Adam, saying that part of the equation is gone. You have your eligible population that has bountiful vaccine. We're turning away vaccine because there's not enough uptake anymore. So, I mean, the people that want to be protected, and this is where I get a little bit angry about this, is it's not our kids' job to protect our adults. And that's the way we've been treating this. And this has been our approach this whole entire year, is worried about adults and community, but we don't worry about our children. So, and that's been the biggest frustrating part, is our administration has not said, we're worried about the kids. We're worried about the kids' mental health. What do we need to do for the children? That has not been said. That has not been our topic of conversation. So it's not safety for the kids. Again, we're now talking about masks for safety for people at home that have the opportunity to get vaccinated if they need to, or they have the opportunity to mask up. So you have the opportunity to mask up. That is protecting your health too, right? So I don't have to wear a mask to protect you anymore because you have the right to get vaccinated, or you have the right to wear your own mask. That's where we are as far as the healthcare industry too. So it's the same thing we do at my work, in our facilities, and everywhere else. So being, like I said, the only medical provider on here, you guys don't understand where this is going or where this has been. So it's a little bit frustrating sitting here and kind of arguing a little bit over this. And we've done this multiple times this year. And everyone says, oh, it's safety and we got to save the kids. We got to do this. That's not why. It's always been the quarantine piece, or it's been the community piece, or it's been the adult piece. It's never been the kid piece. And the kids are not susceptible to this. So
well,
they're not.
that's not fair. They are susceptible. They're just not having the same level of side effects as adults have, and they can transmit it just the same. And frankly, from a medical provider perspective, the reaction from the IDPH announcement on Friday was abhorrent by many immunologists and virologists in Iowa. Megan Shrinivoss up in Fort Dodge called it ridiculous that they'd make that type of assertion this fast. So, I mean, I understand that you're the only one among us who is a medical professional, and I respect that. But from people who are in that field specifically with infectious disease are saying it's a wrong step. So I understand what you're saying, but it is what it is.
And I'm gonna interject right here. The administration, the staff, and the teachers are doing everything for the best interest of the students. And they're doing everything also for the safety, for the education, and the welfare of all of our students. The CDC has only said the people that can release their masks are people that are vaccinated. So the question is, are we going to stick with what we've been doing for the next 11 and a half days, or are we not? And I'm willing to concede outside, no masks, as long as everybody's socially distanced. But I mean, we could talk for hours on this group says this and this group says that, and everyone has their own personal agenda, and that's great. But right now we have 11 and a half days. We have a graduation ceremony coming up. We have kids that need to end this year strong. We have staff that wants to end this year on a good note. And I think we need to get them through the end of this year, and then we can worry about everything else all summer long, up before fall.
I also agree that our administration is very supportive of keeping our kids and staff safe, and they have supported that. And I would hope that we as a board would support our teachers and our administrators and our cabinet and our superintendent, who are just trying to do the right thing. And it would just seem like we're fumbling the ball if we do something right now with 11 and a half days to go. Tom, you are the only medical person, but just years of experience. I just don't want teachers to yet again have to change what they're doing, and they're going to lose a few kids to online, and that's not fair. And just write it out, just finish it off, and then we can regroup for next fall. And I'm appreciative of our teachers, our staff, our administrators, our cabinet. Everybody have been so great this year. We should count our blessings that we belong to Southeast Polk.
Yeah, and Rick, I would say we fumbled the ball a lot this year. So, I mean, looking back, we've had these same conversations saying, hey, we did this for safety, we did this for safety. And then what has progressed and then what has came about? We could have been doing what we're doing now the whole entire year, right? Because we've had zero problems. Things have went just like we intended them to be. So, I mean, looking back, yeah, we fumbled the ball hardcore the whole first semester. So, I mean, and we can do that again. It's fine. I mean, mistakes are fine. We're going to live through them either way. But, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. This is going to happen. So, and nothing's going to change between now and when it happens. As far as a pediatric population, do they need to be vaccinated against COVID? No, they don't. They would need to, as far as numbers, as far as what we'd like to see as far as herd immunity, which we're approaching now anyway, as far as with our vaccination rate and then with our positive cases. So, which is not talked about in numbers yet. It will be, but it's not. So, I mean, you look at how the percentage of people that have been vaccinated plus the percentage of people that have had COVID. So an estimated 114 million cases estimated, I guess, as far as what the CDC estimates, as far as how many cases there have been, even though there's only been 32 million or so documented cases. So, I mean, all this will come out just like it has. I mean, we're just way behind the ball and we follow. I mean, that's what the CDC does too. It's a slow play. I mean, they're going slow, they're going. It's going to happen. Just like everything else we wanted it all year has happened. It's just, we always slow played it. And the only ones that suffer out of this is our children. So, I mean, that's the only frustrating thing is we can go. And like I said, kids will survive for the next 11 days. It's just 11 more days of unnecessary uncomfortable time for them, time where they can't make those relationships, where they can't smile, where they can't talk without a mask on. Yes, they persevere, they live, it's not going to kill them, but it's unnecessary. So that's the whole point of
And
this.
I don't think the first semester was fumbling the ball.
No,
Absolutely
I think
fumbling.
everybody's been making the best of what the situation is and working diligently to get us to the end zone, which is the end of the school year. And your perspective might be that everything was fumbled the first semester or whatever, but that's not the way that the teachers, the staff, and all the parents think. We're getting our kids through a very excruciating year, and we're trying to get them educated, and we've kept our school doors open for the majority of the school year. We're one of the only schools that opened on time on the original scheduled day of school. And we have continued to educate our kids diligently. And that's not fumbling the ball, Tom.
I think we've handled it great all year round. I think every time we've had a decision to make, it's been hard. And, I just think we've made it to the finish line, and let's cross it. I don't think that we're doing the wrong thing just because we can't see a kid smile. They're probably smiling underneath the mask. It's just a no-brainer to me, but I'm just one person on this committee.
Mr. Handy,
Okay,
I would call the question.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, and that, just to clarify with that, Lori, correct me if
Second.
I'm wrong. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and clarify it. Yeah, go ahead, Lori.
You want to know what the motion is, or we
Yeah,
can?
just go ahead and make sure everybody understands what it is just before we vote.
The motion is to leave things as they are, with the exception of letting them, when they're outside, not wear masks when they're socially distanced.
So they have
Now-
to sit, they have to
Go
sit 6 feet away on the playground, and they can't play with each other.
Well, and I assume, are we adhering to the CDC's rules, which is a continuous 10 minutes of not being social distance? So if they're not social distance for 9 minutes, take a minute of break, and they come back, they're perfectly fine. I assume that's what we're holding them to. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's the
CDC
standard.
guidelines. As long
What-
as, if they're out and they're not rolling on top of each other, et cetera, they're socially distanced, I'm okay with the masks not being on outside.
Yeah, enough with the stats. We just need to let them have recess without masks, let them play sports and activities outside without masks. Let's don't count minutes. Let's just let them be.
Okay, the motion though, however, is what she asked for, so that's what we're gonna vote on. We can have another discussion depending on how this votes come in, so just, I guess, hold the comments on that. We'll go with the motion. So, everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Okay, a yes vote would be to keep the masks on indoors and no outdoor mask outside the 6 foot. Is that correct, Lori?
Is 6 foot our social distance standard right now?
No, it's 3 at most. And 2 in some places, depending on the classroom. I mean, it's been moved and seconded, so we do have to vote. on it.
Okay, okay.
Folks, we're going off of the recommendation. So Lori said that was correct. So Karen, can we go ahead and get a vote or roll call on that?
Fisher,
No,
Nave,
No.
Slings,
Yes.
Krell,
No,
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
No.
Crab,
No,
no, am I assuming, Chad, I don't know where you're at with this one, but I voted no specifically on that one because I don't like the extra verbiage on the outside. I think if they're outside, let them take their masks off. The CDC has basically cleared it at this point in time. And frankly, if kids are moving around like that, we're not going to see them exceed 10 minutes within a 6-foot bubble. I think it's better just for clarity and simplicity to just say, if they're outside, take off the masks. If you're inside, we'll continue our mask mandate for the last 11 and a half days. Let's not overcomplicate it.
Yeah,
Is that your motion?
that's
Make it a little easier.
I can put that into a simplistic motion. I was just explaining the thought process. Is there any concerns with that?
I think the social distancing part, I agree with Lori that I don't think they should be wrestling outside, but you know, if it's within reason, I don't think that we need to try to police that. I think that's maybe overkill. So however you want to word that.
Well, I mean, that's frankly part of the ridiculousness. And I know, Gary, you can laugh at this, of the CDC's guidelines from the beginning, is that if I literally stood 6 inches from you for 9 minutes and 30 seconds, but I jumped away before that 10-minute mark, I was magically okay. And yes, that sounds ludicrous, but that's how it read when they put it out. So I think for simplicity's sake, Mr. President, I would make the motion that Southeast Polk will maintain the mask mandate as it pertains to indoor activities or enclosed space activities. However, when outdoors, staff and students will be allowed to remove their masks for the remainder of the school year.
Just
I'll second that.
Just a clarification on that. So, and I'm not making light of this, but I guess when we talk about we don't want them rolling around to each other, how many times in a classroom are the kids rolling around with each other? They're not on top of each other. They're still trying to keep some spacing between them in the class. So I guess I get where you're going with it. You don't want them, you know, horsey-back riding or whatever we call it nowadays. But they're not doing that in the classrooms either. They're limited contact, getting the paper from a teacher or handing, you know, something, passing papers to the next person behind. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
What's in what context? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding, Brett. What's the?
Well, so if they're on the jungle gym outside, they can be close together and they can play together, which I completely agree. I think kids need to play together. They should be playing together, whether it's ring around the rosy, whatever they're doing, jump roping, basketball, handling, what you name it, whatever they're doing outside. I guess I'm not sure
What the difference is
between playing outside next to your friends, sweating on them, versus being in a classroom, sitting next to each other in a desk. No
air
horse
movement and ventilation. That's the biggest thing that the CDC has pointed out. It's the difference in air movement and ventilation. Is outdoors, you're going to have a continuous movement of air, and inside you don't. And I mean, you've been in some of our classrooms. Some of those have horrible ventilation, and that's where the issue arises. That's why there's the difference there of the enclosed space versus the outdoor space. So that's where that difference arises there between indoors and outdoors.
But I guess if you're on the jungle gym and you're passing sweat around, and my son
Sweat's not a conducer as far as I'm aware. I don't know, Tom, is sweat a conducer of this? I thought it was
sitting or whatever.
I thought it was aerosolization. So yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think you get my point.
I understand what you're saying.
So just wanted to mention that. So everybody
Can I call the
understand
question?
Everybody understand what Adam's motion is? And I think Rick seconded it.
Yes.
All right, Karen?
Fisher,
No.
Nave,
Nope.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
No.
Crab.
Yes.
So just so we're clear, tomorrow morning, if a parent decides to send their child to school without masks and drops them off and leaves, what does the policy say will occur? Dr.
Teacher-
Hlapnik?
Teacher will provide a mask.
Yeah, the building principal will work with the student and the family.
And if they refuse to wear one?
There's a variety of steps that would go along the way there.
All right, everybody understand? Clear on everything here?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll
Second.
second it.
Thank you, everybody, for meeting on a Sunday night. Appreciate it very much. You guys have a good rest of your weekend.